Well, in today's video I'm going to show you exactly how to change the spur and pinion gear over on the Traxxas TRX6, but the same principles can also be used on the Traxxas TRX4. So I'm going to get straight down to it, get the camera over here and show you how to do it step by step. Now in this video, these are the gears I'm going to fit. This is the new 39 tooth spur gear and the 21 tooth pinion on here. This is gearing you need if you want to make the TRX6 go much faster than it was probably designed for, particularly with the brushless Castle power plant that yours truly has got installed. So if you want to see this car run in anger, then don't forget to subscribe. But anyway, let's get down to changing the spur and the pinion gear. Okay, taking the body off to one side. The first thing I'm going to do is remove the battery tray. The next thing I'm going to do is remove the motor, and turning the car over, we're also going to remove, or loosen rather, the rear drive shaft and the front drive shaft on there, and that's so that when the battery cover is removed we can remove the whole gearbox assembly in order to get to that spur gear. Well, the first job is to remove the battery tray. There's two screws either side here. There's one screw under here and one screw under here. So with those four screws undone, the battery tray, it says, should come out fairly straightforward. Now there is an art to removing the battery tray because it's got two lugs one either side on here, and you might try and kink it around like that. What you do, dip the back of the battery tray down into the gap there, you then twist it to the side and it comes out nice and easily like that, giving us our first clear look at the motor and gearbox assembly. Next thing to do, I'm going to remove these three screws holding the motor down. Remove that to get that out of the way. That will then give me a little easier access to the screws holding the gearbox in place. With those three screws removed, I'm going to take the gearbox casing and let the motor hang down to the side there, put my gearbox casing safely to the side. So I'm now beginning to see the wood for the trees. Next I've got to hunt down the 3 or 4 screws in the inside of here holding the gearbox in place. But before I do that, I'm going to loosen the pins holding the drive shafts in place and pull those back out of the way. Okay, that's the second of my pins removed. Very carefully put these to one side. They're very small, very easy to lose. Now gently slide the drive shafts off. That then means when I release the gearbox, everything is free to move away nice and easily. Fingers crossed. First up, I would point out before you do anything in terms of releasing the screws, you've got to disconnect the gear switching servo from the little rod here. Now to release the gearbox, there are simply 3 screws to undo. One is here. This servo is on a little arm which will come away with the gearbox on there. The other screw is the other side of the gearbox here. It is not a screw between the two servos, but there is another one down in a deep dark hole in the middle there. Release that, hold the car and release the third screw from there. At that point, if you've done exactly what I said, the whole gearbox module should release, enabling you to change the spur gear nice and easily. Very simple indeed, and at the same time yours truly is going to blow all the crud away from the inside of the car. So now all we have to do, remove the nut, remove the slipper clutch pads and refit them to my new spur gear and put the whole thing back together. At this point, while I'm doing the nut on the front, you are going to need something to stop that rear drive shaft moving, otherwise you're just going to be fighting against yourself, and then the nut should simply unscrew off of the spur. Now you can opt to fit a new set of slipper clutch pads to your new spur gear, but yours truly is just going to use this tiny little screwdriver to lever them out from this one. That said, I see at this point that Traxxas have used some sort of glue beneath these pads on here, so you may be better fitting a set of new pads to new slipper clutch, but it's getting late at night, so I am going to do what normal people will do, get the heat gun out, bit of heat to it, pull it back off. Well guys, when I mentioned slipper clutch pads, I would highly recommend buying a new set. I've used my hot air gun, put a bit of heat on the existing spur gear and managed to get the pads away without too much problem on there at all. But I recognise not everybody is going to have a hot air gun to do that with. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue or something on there to hold the pads in place, because if Traxxas glued them on there, they glued them on there for a reason. And at this point guys, I'm going to use one of my classic RC tips, one we should have learned at school, and that is to use school glue, put that on the inside of the slipper clutch pad and stick it on to the spur gear. Nice simple tip, and 6 of these yours from the dollar store. Okay guys, do as I say, not as I do necessarily, or something like that. In order to tighten it back up, you'll need to shift whatever you've got locking the rear drive to the secondary rear drive, I'm not quite sure what they call that, in order that you can tighten the spur up. Now we can lock it up nice and tight on there. Job done. So simply, so when undoing it, you need this, your driver through this hole in the back of the gearbox. When tightening it back up, you need it through this shaft to get the whole thing tightened up. So now we're ready to fit the motor back in. Gearbox back in place, 2 screws in place from the top to hold it down, 1 from underneath. With those 3 screws in place, the gearbox is held down firmly, so simply time to turn it over and fix the front and rear drive shafts back on. And whilst you're on the top side, don't forget to snap that high-low gear connection back in place. Well, the next job is to fit the motor back on. In the meantime, I fitted the 21 tooth pinion, which uses the G slots, which uses both of the slots marked G on here. So fingers crossed, that should just slot into place, and that just slots into place and meshes perfectly with the new 39 tooth spur. So time to get the motor cover back on and get some speed on. So with the motor cover back on, next job is to put the battery tray back in place, but in order to do that very carefully, need to move this wiring out of the way here, because you want those wires to come between the 2 screw holes here, which are also located on the front of the battery tray. So I'm going to very carefully slide the back end, twist it round, push that down, fingers crossed don't crimp my wires. Well, the same thing as before when it comes to putting the battery tray in. You're going to put the back end of that right down, and it's going to slide in place like that. All I've got to do now is very carefully ensure the wires are sitting between those 2 screw holes. Pop that down. Now when that's in place, it will click home on there. My wires are clean, so I'm going to get the 2 screws in. So with those 2 screws in place, we're nearly done. Just got to fit the screw from this side and the screw from this side, and that is my spur and pinion gear nearly completed. Now there we are with the battery tray back in place, cables tidied up, pretty much all about done. If you want to see this car run in anger, however, then please do subscribe, and if you love this video, you found it useful, then by all means share with friends. All shares on social media very much appreciated. Every tip that's shown you how to change the spur and pinion gear on the TRX6 can be applied exactly the same if you've got a TRX4. Anyway, hope you found this video useful. If you did, then give it the thumbs up, guys. Thanks for watching. Well, thumbs up if you like this video, guys. Post any comments you might have in the comment section below the video, and hit the circle below to subscribe. And if you do hit the circle, don't forget to hit the bell.